Allison Seeley-Smith here, the voice of Storm from X-Men the Animated Series and X-Men 97. I'm summoning you to a monumental gathering, the Uncanny Experience, the immersive X-Men fandom convention. This September 28th and 29th, we are transforming the Minneapolis Club in Minnesota into the hallowed halls of the Xavier Institute. Prepare for an electrifying array of panels, a mutant marketplace, celebrity meet and greets, a cosplay contest, the enigmatic Hellfire Club, and an unforgettable after-party in the mansion. Embrace your powers and let the storm guide you. Visit theuncannyexperience.com to learn more.
Bum bum bottom 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 bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bottom bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bottom bottom bum bum bottom ba da 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 ba da
You are now in session with the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast. I'm Lisa Gullickson.
And I'm Brad Gullickson.
And each month we evaluate a different iconic romance within the four-color realm. And in this episode, if a potential mate is not on board with Hogbook, then they probably won't be a good match. Only you and a pilot responded in our Creator Corner. We're talking to brilliant brains / married couple Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy about Hogbook and Lazer Eyes from Fantagraphics.
Lisa?
You're in session with the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast.
I have said that line so many times that it has lost all meaning, and
Not
it takes
to me.
so many takes
It hasn't
to get
lost
that introduction.
any meaning to me, Lisa.
But everybody was thrown off by my pitch at the beginning.
I
have to
Lisa,
say it different.
No one would notice unless you did what you just did. You put a big old spotlight on that you.
People would notice, and they wouldn't tell me that they noticed. They would just look at me differently for the rest of our lives.
All right, fine, whatever. Lisa, it's
Yes.
June. And for me, the summer has kicked off. We are officially 1 month away from the San Diego Comic-Con International. I'm living every day just to get to that weekend.
I am so delirious right now. I feel like, you know when you watch an old cartoon and the people are stuck on a deserted island and everywhere they look, they see like hot dogs and stuff? Like, I am so desperate for San Diego Comic-Con to be here. I can't tell if it's just a mirage or if it's actually getting any closer.
Well,
I'm
before-
so overextended.
Before we even get to San Diego Comic-Con, we also have our 15th wedding anniversary.
That's right.
On June 27th, we expect everyone listening to send us presents.
That's right. Take off work
Take off work.
just to sit at home and think about us.
I want to hear your favorite comic and why you think it's right for us. I want restaurant suggestions. Lisa and I are going to do a road trip up to Portland, Maine. If you're in that area, let us know if there's a cool place to get some grub.
Why Portland, Maine, you ask? I don't know.
Well,
Why?
the reason we're going up north is because we're actually going to New Hampshire because we want to see the Ninja Turtles house.
That's right.
It's also the 40th anniversary of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe you've been listening to the podcast, maybe you've heard, but we want our selfie next to the manhole cover.
Yeah. We like to sit in the car and just listen to podcasts and have a great time. And I think seeing that manhole cover is a great way to celebrate our love.
Well, we have created a tradition for our anniversaries, our big anniversaries, of going to someplace geeky. The first time we did it, we went to Graceland, and we did that tour like 3 times in a row, had an absolute blast. For our 10th wedding anniversary, we went up to Maine also, but to Bangor, Maine to do the Stephen King tour.
That was so fun.
Had so much fun. And this time we were like, well, what's the next nerdy thing we can do? And then this just seemed natural given the year that it is.
Yeah.
June and July, though, are going to be nuts. And it was one of those things that we were talking about it off mic. And when we talk about all this stuff that's coming down the pike and we talk about it all at once, both of us tend to freak out.
But mostly me.
But mostly Lisi. You get overwhelmed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Even when it's great stuff.
Yeah. I'm a do one thing at a time kind of person. And when Brad lists everything I have on my plate, suddenly I'm not hungry anymore. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, though. I am genuinely excited about everything coming up and everything that we have already recorded and is in the can.
I normally like to keep the plugs for the end of the episode, but I'm also extremely proud of us that we have recorded our entire June schedule already. Next week, Jordan Morris will be back on the podcast talking about his new original graphic novel, Youth Group. After that, not only will Matt Kint return, but this time he's brought his mom. The two of them have collaborated for the first time. Well, not actually the first time, but kind of the first time. You'll hear about it in the episode. On a new murder mystery from Dark Horse Comics and Flux House called Guilt Frame. It is an incredibly intricate whodunit, but told with a very modern Matt Kint or Kint family sensibility. And then we have 2 episodes, yes, a bonus episode in June, that we're not even going to reveal right now because it's too epic for you. And we can't help but tease. In addition to all that, though, Lisa, we've been guesting on a lot of podcasts as well.
Yes, as a married couple, we do have a closed sexual relationship, but we have a very open podcast relationship, and we have been swinging from show to show. Out this week, I'm pretty sure.
It's actually out now. You can listen to it immediately following this conversation with Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy.
Yay, how thrilling. We are on Free with Ads with Jordan Morris and Emily Fleming talking about Tank Girl, which was a damn delight.
The movie.
And this morning, we recorded 2 separate episodes, with 2000 AD Thrillcast with Steve Morris. I was talking about Full Tilt Boogie, and what were you talking about, Brad?
I was talking about the Hell Trekkers, which I had never read before, and I am oh so glad that I have finally put that horror show in my brain.
And on Friday, you guys don't need to know our personal schedule, but now Brad and I are just talking about what we have on the calendar.
Don't get overwhelmed, Lisa. Don't get overwhelmed.
And on Friday, we are recording with one of the most handsome men in podcasting, Vactor, on the Vactorverse podcast, talking about X-Men 97.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk X-Men 97 because all of those relationships in that cartoon series we've kind of covered on the podcast already, but the animated series offers such a unique lens, and I love how it does justice to our memory of the original show, but kind of, I hate to use the word elevates it, but it elevates it.
Yeah, it's a show that is as good as X-Men felt when we were children.
Exactly. And yeah, we have a lot going on, and we've taken the gauche portion of the show at the end, and we brought it to the beginning and forced you to listen to it now, and for that, I'm not sorry.
Our podcast has become a snake eating its own tail. Plugs in the beginning, plugs at the end. The circle of plugs. You know how this happened, Brad.
No.
I told you work is going to be really busy, so don't schedule anything unless it's going to be really fun and or important.
Yeah, and then all these awesome things became available to us, and we had to say yes to all of them, Lisa.
And you know what? Why not? You only live once, or YOLO. I think that's the first time I've said it into a mic, and I hated it.
Did not like it. But what I do like is the fact that we have Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy on the show to talk about Hogbook and Lazer Eyes, which is out now from Fantagraphics. This is a book we have been anticipating for over a year, Lisa, but we couldn't possibly imagine that we would get them on the show to actually discuss it.
I am literally beside myself. We had to set up 4 chairs for this recording so I could sit on my right and my left. That's how excited I am to have Maria Bamford on the podcast. So those of you who are perhaps regular listeners might know that I'm a huge stand-up comedy nerd. I love stand-up comedy, and Maria Bamford is my number 1. So the second we found out that Fantagraphics was putting out one of her books, I was like, Brad, can you poke Fantagraphics again and again and again until we can get her on the pod?
And that's what I've been doing for the last year.
Thank you, Brad. You're my literal favorite after Maria Bamford.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot underscore how much you love Maria Bamford, which is what actually made me a little nervous going into this conversation,
Yes.
because we've all heard how fanish you can be, how fanish I could be, can be, and will still be. And I was worried, like, okay, Lisa's just not going to be able to measure her cool in any way. And I just have to, like, give it up to that. And that's fine. But you were surprisingly chill in this conversation. Besides, like, our usual shouting into the microphone like we're doing right now.
Yeah, like, I didn't want her to be uncomfortable knowing that I'm a huge nerd for her, and I'm a little afraid that my plan backfired because I didn't lead with, like, I'm a huge fan who's listened to and watched everything you've ever made. So that when
that's
she
not an
brings
exaggeration
up,
either,
it's
right?
not. It's literally true. I have watched her to completion. Well, not sexual completion. That came across weird. But I'm afraid I was playing it so cool that I accidentally, like, nagged her because she later brings up Jackie Cation, whom I also love. And I'm like, I love Jackie Cation. And then I'm like, does Maria think that I love Jackie Cation and yet don't know who she is?
I don't think you negged her. I don't think that was negging in any way. I think, like I said, I was impressed that you were able to maintain your fangirlish nature to a certain degree, while also, digging into this book in a way that only you could as a result of that fandom.
That's so sweet.
You're welcome. It's true. And while I haven't read and watched Maria Bamford to completion, I have read and watched a lot of Maria Bamford, and I too was extremely excited to chat with her and Scott Marvel Cassidy. We were anticipating this comic, but we didn't really know what this comic was going to be. We knew that it was a story of their relationship told through the eyes of their elder dogs, but, like, would that translate into a great comic book? And friends, it does. This is one of my favorite comics of 2024, and it brought me to tears multiple times. Scott Marvel Cassidy is a great artist, is a great cartoonist. No doubt you've seen panels taken from the book and put onto social media, and you've been attracted to those panels, but those panels then put into context of the story are profound.
Yeah, he just has such an expert hand when it comes to creating visual metaphor. When you're creating an audio podcast, it's, like, hard to describe how extraordinarily special things look. It is ineffable how special his art is when you put it next to the text, which is extremely, like, straightforward, almost on the very edge of, like, mundane. It's so sparky. It is so brilliant. And yeah, really moving.
Just to add a little more context to this conversation and to the Hogbook and Lazer Eyes story in general, where this book begins, both Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy are at a low point in their lives, an emotional low point. And as we dig in a little deeper with this conversation, that's a precarious place to begin a relationship. You wouldn't imagine that this romance would work, but here it is. Here it does. They're on our podcast right now together. And what's so fun about this conversation is that it does become, and actually kind of starts, as a proper comic book couples counseling session.
Yeah, like Maria and Scott are our counselees?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think we do some counseling. I think they do some counseling.
It is nice to have creative couple on creative couple conversations, because I think that not every couple has the impulse to make a thing, to start a project together. And couples that don't do that, I almost don't even, like, relate to, because I'm kind of like, why can't I bring Brad to work? You know what I mean? Like, I would, and whenever he's working on something, I'm like, oh, well, I want to put my little fingerprints on that thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly sharing each other's, not only, like, our creative pursuits, but, our everyday work pursuits. Like,
Yeah.
hey, lend me your imagination on this problem.
At the same time, that's not always easy.
No.
Because we both are a little bit bullheaded when it comes to our ideas.
Facts.
And we will, We will argue about it to the point of tears.
I mean, again, we've talked about this on the podcast, but all of our arguments are comic book couples counseling or creative related arguments.
Yeah, because we care so much.
Yeah, maybe too much.
Getting back to the comic, though, I love that they chose to tell their love story from the perspective of their elderly pugs. For as long as I've known about her, Maria Bamford has always made it a point to adopt elderly dogs because they are the dogs that are least likely to go home with somebody. And perhaps as an extension of her OCD, she is a tremendously principled person. And once she gets a principle in her mind, she's like, well, I guess that, I mean, I have to do the most generous thing. I have to do the most principled thing. But what it does is it chops her life into very short chapters because it's like, well, this is when I was with Blossom and then Bert came along and Blueberry and that kind of thing. And Brad and I, as like a child-free couple, like we can kind of measure time off of our nibblings, but we don't have like a person growing in our home going like, okay.
I was going to say we measure time through our various trips to San Diego Comic-Con, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the 2012 vintage.
Yeah. Another aspect about their love story being told from the perspective of the pugs is that the pugs are only at home, and the pugs have a very simplistic view of them. They're like, here's who they are when they are lying on the couch, and here's how they are when we're having a barbecue in the backyard.
They miss so much of the narrative.
And a lot of that narrative for a Maria Bamford fan, I feel like I've gotten from other places. Like another book came out, I think a year ago, called Sure, I'll Join Your Cult. That's her memoir, and a huge chunk of that is, not even a huge chunk, but it does include the love story between her and Scott and how they got together. But I feel like we get to see Maria and Scott when they are the most boring. And like that's the stuff I'm actually curious about because like I spend a lot of my time being boring.
Yeah. And it's extremely effective in this comic because that's where the relationship, that's where the romance actually happens.
Yeah.
And I do think whether you're a Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy fan already or not, you will connect deeply with this comic book. I hope every comic book couples counseling listener goes to their shop and at least gives this book a perusal. Do a flip through these pages. Read the first few pages because I think you will find so much of yourself in their story. But before we get to this epic conversation with Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy, Lisa, we need to do some
referrals.
Sponsored by Omnibus. Omnibus is a modern digital comic book store and reader app carrying your favorite single issues, volumes, and omnibuses all day and date. Just like your local comic book store, you pay per book, but digital.
Their focus is on building an excellent customer shopping and reading experience and using novel discovery features to help fans find their next new favorite book. They feature top-tier content and already have many of the top publishers in comics today.
In the spirit of helping people find their next new favorite book, we have our referrals segment. The idea is to give our counselees, that's you guys, further reading on the themes of the episode. Think of it as us sending you to specialists to further your healing journey through comic books. And right now, Omnibus is everywhere. Whether you have an iPhone or an Android or just a browser, you have access to this digital comic book store. So Lisa, what do you got for us this week?
One of the things that I admire most about Maria Bamford is that she speaks really frankly about her mental health journey. She is a person who has bipolar 2. She's had psychotic episodes. She's been in mental health facilities. She can make a joke about it, and she can make it relatable. That is part of Hogbook and Lazer Eyes, her mental health and Scott's mental health. And I'm a person who has also had struggles with her mental health. I have an anxiety disorder, and I've had depression and all of those things. Being a fan of her has helped make me more brave when it comes to talking about myself. And so I wanted a book that also had those kind of frank conversations that represents dealing with mental health in a way that feels true and grounded. So the book that I came up with was Count Crowley from David Dasmalchian and Lucas Kettner.
We love that comic book.
We love that comic book, and we loved it even more after we had David on the podcast, because he put so much of himself into this comic. His struggle with addiction, his struggle with kind of listlessness, and his own mental health struggles. And I feel like it makes the character of Jerry more relatable in an extraordinary circumstance, because she is fighting werewolves and she is fighting vampires and stuff like that. Grounding the characters helps me engage better with something fantastical.
Yeah, I love this pick. I love this comic book, obviously. It's one of my favorites. The latest miniseries just wrapped up from Dark Horse. Highly recommend it. I love the angle that you're going with. I wish I had followed a similar track, but I did not. I went with animals.
There you go. Animals are great. We love animals.
There are so many great animal comics right now, from like Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees to Man's Best. We've talked a lot about those on the podcast already. One I wanted to highlight is a book that actually popped up this week on Omnibus's Staff Rex section, which I would highly recommend all of you going to Omnibus to check out. Last Ronin's on there, Beneath the Trees is on there, and this comic, which is Animal Castle, another take on Animal Farm. If you read the synopsis of the first issue, the first sentence is, "On the farm, all animals were equal. In the castle, some are more equal than others."
I've actually never read Animal Farm.
Oh, really?
I feel like it's one of those books that gets assigned in high school, and it just like never came up for me.
Well, I was never assigned it in high school. When I was in 3rd grade, my dad and I did read it before bed.
Wild.
That is
Wild.
Greg Gullickson for you. And yes, it did mess me up, and I had many Animal Farm nightmares as a result. I then went and reread the book whenever the Ralph Steadman illustrated edition came out in the early aughts or the late 90s. I love Animal Farm, but it's been a while since I've read it. Tom King is also doing a take on Animal Farm right now for Boom Studios called Animal Pound, which is also pretty good.
And also on Omnibus, right?
And also on Omnibus. But what I like about Animal Castle is it takes that starting Orwellian point and then goes into this really radical fantasy realm with it. The art is incredible. The ideas match that art. And it's a challenging read, but an extremely addictive read. And one to read in an election year.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
More people should be reading Animal Castle in this country called America.
Now's a good time to read all of the sad animal things. Animal Farm, Charlotte's Web, Watership Down.
Go check out All Dogs Go to Heaven like we did recently and cried so much. But I think that's going to do it for our referral segment. If you do check out those comics, please let us know what you think of them. We want to hear from you. And yeah, go to Omnibus on whatever device you have in front of you right now that you're probably listening to this podcast on, and check out what they've got going on. I'm really excited by all the possibilities and the potential that this digital comic book store offers.
Yeah, and they're updating it all the time, so stay tuned. Referrals.
So I think we've teased this conversation with Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy enough. Let's get to it. Let's go into session with this couple. Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy, welcome to Comic Book Couples Counseling. Hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us on the show. Are you licensed peer specialists?
Oh, we are not. We are not. We only counsel comic book characters. And then it's kind of like the comics are counseling us, because we really can't afford it.
Yes, but we are experts in each other's problems.
Each other very much. So experts in loving each other.
Yeah, Scott, what are my issues?
Come on.
Well, we've read the book. We know a
We
few.
know everything about you now.
Right.
And we're going to get to the bottom of it.
One of the things that we were most excited to experience through Hogbook and Lazer Eyes was the fact that you too also went through a counseling premarital weekend as we did before we got married. And we've never talked to anyone else who's done that. And
we had to do it because we got married in the Catholic Church, and they will not marry you unless you do the weekend.
I knew about that from the Catholic Church, and I appreciate that. I think, man, it's so to have some thoughts about it or talk with some other people. So I just found a place. It was San Francisco, 2 psychologists who had married each other on their second marriages, and then were holding these weekends. So we went up to San Francisco, and we learned about. We were supposed to guess what we thought our partner's love language was. And then when we were wrong, don't feel bad. What was my love language is acts of service.
Nice.
And then Scott's love language, I bet it was physical.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. But I think it could be gifts. But he's a great gift giver. He gives insanely thoughtful. Over long periods of time, he'll build on a gift idea secretly. I cannot keep secrets, and he's very good at that. Yeah, so that we went, and it was good. It was. I think it was just as anything is when you go for help. Like even if it wasn't that helpful, it's like neat to try.
We went, was it the Gottmans?
No, this wasn't the Gottmans. This was the one in San Francisco we did.
But it wasn't Catholic. We didn't do any Catholic.
Oh, no, it wasn't Catholic. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we did the Gottmans couples weekend. Do you know the Gottmans? John and Judy.
We do.
What's your favorite thing about the Gottmans?
My favorite thing I got from the Gottmans was the idea of like the way that you tell your story kind of is predeterminate of if you will stay together. So if you tell your relationship story as a story of triumph over adversity, you're more likely to stay together versus if you go like, oh, well, it's really rough and we're just hanging on by the skin of our teeth. Like that's my takeaway from the Gottmans. What is your takeaway from the Gottmans?
Well, we learned something. So that weekend, it was up in Seattle. Of course, we're in LA, and I was really sick. Like 2 days before. I'm sick. I don't want to go anywhere. I can't do it. We have to go. We have to go, she says. Wait, listen to me finish. We have to go. And so we go, and I'm sick. I am so sick. It's raining. It's miserable. We go. You're in a room like 300 people. And I'm just like, oh, my God, I don't know why I'm here. I hate this. And so 3 hours later, we go up to the Gottmans, and she goes, hey, we're really doing this, but my husband's sick. And what do you think we should do? They're like, get out of here. Go. He shouldn't be here. What are you doing?
Oh, no.
So it was about listening. We learned that lesson about listening to your partner's wants and needs.
Like the one thing that's important is to like pay attention. Because I was also anxious. Like, we've got to go this thing. Otherwise, our relationship won't work out or whatever. So I've got, like this fancy, we've got to go do this outside external thing. And it's like the one thing I needed to do was listen to my partner and that they did not feel well. Oh, well. But my favorite, I like the gamification of relationships with it, where it's like for every negative thing, you've got to say 5 positives. So if I say, Scott, whatever it is, so you know how you take your Band-Aids off your little fingers and you toss it into the garbage can. And I know it's fun. And a lot of times you do make it the garbage can, but sometimes you don't rebound. You don't
remember how sometimes you put your wet towels on top of the trash can and then there's nothing, you can't get anything in there.
Yeah. So, Maria, why do you load the refrigerator like it's a prank show?
Oh my God. So I'll open up, I'm having a good day, right? I open up the refrigerator and she has placed the cardboard container of Diet Colas and they're just going pop, 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 pop. And they're all exploding. And I'm just standing there with the door open, and I'm getting shot with sprays of Diet Cola. And I mean, we're talking like the whole 12.
And I've done that to myself. So, but
It's happened more than once.
And of
Thank you
course.
very much.
Yeah. But now,
This is like therapy.
but what we've done, we got to do 15. Now we got to do 20. You got to say 5 for every negative thing. You got to say 5 positive things.
Oh, that's
So-
amazing.
Your head is large. You've got a nice rabbit face. You have warm hands that are always
She's
warm.
telling you all the things I tell her.
No, you have beautiful blue. You look nice and blue, and you look me in the eye, and that's kind.
I like that you breathe. I like that your head is large. I mean, don't have to be specific. It could be general. I like that you're in the world. That's pretty poetic,
Yeah,
Mm.
right?
I'm filled with blood.
There you go.
Way better than the alternative.
Right, right. Because those kind of things, I guess my parents, when I think they had a beautiful marriage, but I just don't understand how they did it, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
How about you guys? Do you go to a therapist or you don't? No.
So the premise of the podcast is that we take a comic book couple like Scott Summers and Jean Grey of the X-Men. I don't know if you're familiar. And we pair them with a self-help book that we think might apply to them. So we would apply the 5 love languages to these members of the X-Men. So I do obsessively process through all kinds of self-help books. And I've kind of come down on the side that you talk about a lot, Maria, where it's just like, even shitty help is help. You know what I mean? Because at least you encounter it and you go like, well, I recognize that as not the help that I need, you know, like that kind of thing. So I definitely go to the self-help realm.
And that's, I think that is so beautiful where it's like, if I can't get healthcare, which sometimes it's so difficult to get healthcare, is there somebody at 100 feet from me, where I'm walking around who I can at least make eye contact with and go, hey, like something that will get the oxytocin going to just do something on my own behalf. I mean, that doesn't sound like much mental health care, but it just saying hi to people on the street. I have a bench in front of our front house and I'll sit there and just see if anybody comes by. And that it can be a cheerful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We can also apply that to like our partner. Like sometimes when our partner gives us shitty help, like we get like all upset, like that's not the help that I need. You should know me better than that. But we should go like, hey, thank you for the shitty help. I can now recognize, and you can now recognize that's not the help that I need.
I'm going to play that back later.
Yeah.
Well, we do a thing. We walk around our pool giving each other advice, but right before the advice comes, like, hey, Maria, you know what I think you should do for your next stand-up? And then I fall in the pool.
Oh,
She'll go, hey, Scott, for your next painting show, you should do this. And she falls in the pool. But sometimes you can draw it out where I can see the terror on her face where she, like, Maria, last time you opened up for this one comedian, what you should have done is, and then I can see the grimace on her face, and then I fall in the pool.
Well, and we have a pool, so let's take that in. Let's take that
nice.
in. That we have it's unheated and it has a light dusting of wasps that are trying to stay alive.
Yeah, so we are suffering a little bit.
Well, it is weird how I think I thought external. People have always this is tales of its time is thinking external things will make a difference in your mood, and it turns out that is not the case.
Mm-mm.
Oh well, that medication. So I'm going through what Jackie Cation calls the Terrigen mists, where I'm just done with menopause, and so my mood is really tanked, and that's been I think embarrassing.
But also high five, because you don't have to do it again. So yay.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yay.
One more benchmark.
Yeah, yeah. So,
No more babies.
no more babies
Oh,
for me.
shutting it down. That's so
Shutting it
sad.
down. Only American Girl dolls.
So we started this conversation with the idea of like the love languages. And, you know, I feel like this isn't one of the official, I'm going off book now, but I feel like one of Brad and my love languages is definitely like collaboration. It's like why we're like, oh, we're in the same place. We should make a thing together. We should do a podcast or with you guys, like we loved seeing Scott pop up in your special. That's so fun. And you did like a home bit, like a bit that you do at home. And
Yeah.
now you have this book together. And now Scott is you're also doing some stand up now too, right?
I stopped.
Oh, you
I'm not
stopped.
good at it.
Brief
don't like
career, a shooting
It's-
star career.
It's fun, but I had a, I don't. Yeah, she's the one.
Well,
Yeah,
he-
yeah.
The great thing is that he knows how anxiety provoking it is. Like, I
Mhm.
get really nervous for shows. I have shows in Seattle, and I just get so scared over and over again. And it's dumb at this point. It's just like I know it. It doesn't matter. But now he knows what it's like because I think he's super funny and did a great job. But he would get really anxious before shows and worry about it. And
I never wanted to do that. But the funny thing is, when I first started doing stand up, when we about maybe a year into dating, I just secretly went to Flappers and did an open mic for 3 minutes, and I did okay. And then I came home. I said, Maria, I just did stand up, and she's like, "Oh, great. What are you doing?" And so she was upset that I was doing that. I was honing in on her world. I was like, "Oh my God, that's like me bouncing a basketball down Wilshire and LeBron James driving by going, what the fuck?"
That's my thing.
That's my thing.
It's ridiculous, but sadly, I have a limited. But I think I don't know. As a woman, like I have dated other comedians, and so that my initial answer was like, "Oh, so now I'm going to become invisible. Now you're going to be the one everyone wants to talk to," which that's happened before, and he is a delight. So people do like to talk to him, and that was the best metaphor he could have chosen. I was like, I basically am the LeBron James.
Second that. I don't know much about LeBron James. He seems fine as a basketball player, but I think you're great.
If X-Men had basketball.
They do sometimes. Oh my goodness, I became that nerd. They do sometimes play basketball, Maria.
Oh my gosh. My friend Jackie, I tour with her and her husband. They would be a great couples. He designs video games and board games. She's a comic and then plays video games all the time. She is constantly telling me about new, like why you have to pay for upgrades in your characters when you're playing a game. And I'm like, your little brain paying whatever, $75 a month to outfit your superhero.
We would love to have Jackie. Like, I've listened to the Dork Forest. I'm like, there are many things we could dork about on there, and we would love to have. That would be a dream come true. We love Jackie Cation.
Oh my God, I'll send her. Send you guys the information because she's there, and they're a lovely couple, and they. I'm trying to think of what if they collaborated on. They would be able to tell you whether they've collaborated. I think they have. She does game testing for him.
So with Hogbook and Lazer Eyes, then what do you two get out of collaborating about your own early dating life and marriage?
Well, I do comic books anyway, so I was going to do one about our dogs. And I said, Maria, why don't you do this with me? And because it's I'm going to do it anyway, so why don't you be part of it? And so she contributed a lot of the writing, and it was perfect. It was because she knows to stay out of the garage where I work. I know to stay out of her room. It doesn't always go that way, but we're really good about boundaries, I think.
Yeah, that's one of many things that is wonderful. Is like we both married later in life, so we had really established for ourselves what our visions were. So we're both very confident in our visions and stuff. And what I love about the comic book is the honesty of, or at least what I perceive as honesty about, like because I just did not have a lot of experience in relationships of any kind of victory, or that sense of, it's all meant to be and it doesn't require any effort on my, I haven't had that, and I never had a relationship last over a year. Yeah, I just really, I was grateful to share our story. And, again, like, not that there's like a perfect happy ending either, because that always, it just leaves me feeling sad after a memoir where they go, and now guess what? I'm taking vitamin B. And I'm killing it 24 hours a day. I'm like, I don't relate with those stories as well. So that's what I like about our stories. It's messy and beautiful, and there's life and death. And
I want to use a particular page to kind of point out something that I think is really beautiful in the book, that it's through the point of view of the dogs. So I picked the page where it's the second date, and this is an audio podcast, but I'm showing you guys the book.
I love it.
And it's your second date, and in the 8-panel grid, we see you guys on the date, and Scott is like history purging and releasing all of his darkness. And Maria, on this bottom panel, you look super concerned and very overwhelmed. But down the center of the page, there are 3 panels of Blueberry, and Blueberry goes like, I went with them. Too much information. Scott is a perfect fit. And I want you to talk a little bit about, like, what is the function of telling your story through the eyes of the dogs? How does that make it different than telling your story from your own point of view as a couple?
Well, it's good to have a third party, Blueberry, to talk about it. So I'm not so you're not talking in the third person. So that's always awkward. So Blueberry or any of the dogs gave us a reason to show emotion, or what was, sort of the overarching narrative, what's going on.
And that kind of, I don't believe in God, but that kind of, that it was meant to be like that spiritual, like, support too. Because I think we get a lot of support from our animals, our doggies. And I need that for all my relationships, is I feel like I need somebody to say, like our therapist, Carol Grisham, to just say, you guys are doing great. I don't know. Where do you guys live?
Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
Fairfax?
Yes.
That's where my brother lives.
Oh.
Okay, we're in Reston. We're in Reston, Virginia.
He's in Arlington? Does that make sense?
Yeah, not too far from here. I used to manage the Barnes & Noble in Arlington.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Wow. I love Barnes and Nobles.
That's where we fell in love. We were just humble booksellers. I was part-time. He was the bargain lead. There was a power imbalance there.
Wow.
John Gottman's story of triumph turned out okay.
Reading your book, I honestly haven't been as emotional reading a comic in a long time, and it was primarily because of experiencing the dogs entering into the Rainbow Bridge sequences. I grew up with a dog for many years, and when she passed away, it was one of the worst experiences of my life up until that point. And I've not been able to love a dog again. And Lisa never grew up with dogs.
And I want one so badly.
Badly.
It's like my last childhood dream that's still alive. I want a dog.
And I'm so moved by the fact that you tend to adopt elderly canines and give them so much love towards the end of their life. But I also imagine that must be like horrible.
Yeah.
Never gets easy.
Well, and Scott, I feel like, takes on the burden of more of the, because I'm out of town frequently. And so, yeah. And I don't know, that adopting older, it just makes me think of like how I want to be treated when I'm older, or what kind of, we're getting older. And I've started saying things like, I had this woman say to me when I was like in my 30s, and I moved to, or no, in my 20s, I moved to Los Angeles. She said, life turns on a dime. And now I've started saying that to young people. I think that's my job. But yeah, sorry.
What?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I'm just sorry.
Yeah, me too. I think it's the Catholic thing for me, though.
I was raised Episcopalian, it's like Catholicism, but in terms of all the ceremony and the verbiage is very similar.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can take communion even if you haven't gotten. You can take you can have the blood and the body.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what Jesus would do, but I can't speak on it with any kind of authority. So a particularly poignant moment in the book is when you had adopted a bonded pair, Betty and Arnold, and Arnold left first, and you got to see Betty in mourning. And there's just this beautiful panel of the three of you together, and Betty in her grief is so enormous, and you guys are so small just holding her. And there's something that we got from a comic book from Dan Slott and Michael Allred, Silver Surfer, and it's the idea of the infinite all in. Like when you're in a relationship with someone, you are putting everything in that basket, knowing that odds are you have a 50-50 shot of being the person who is Betty, is being the person who is left alone and heartbroken. When you were creating that page, and also when you were holding the literal Betty, did you feel that kind of poignancy of like, okay, well, we're a bonded pair, right? And we were adopted together into this universe, and one of us is gonna split ski and leave the other person in a lot of pain.
The thing also with Betty, we knew she was going to go for about a year because she had lung cancer, she had arthritis, she was vomiting, and it was awful, all the things that she was going through. So it was a matter of when should we put her down. So you want her to live as long as you can let her live, but you also don't want to keep her alive. Suffering.
Which, yeah, it's so. I mean, my parents have both passed now, and that was really when my mom died, and my dad was the one who was left behind, and he did everything that you're supposed to do to try to keep going, like everything. He went to grief counseling, he went, new hobbies, he got a girlfriend, like he went on 1 billion dates and got a girlfriend, and who was a delightful person. He was very healthy, and he just kind of sunk. Like he just sunk, and he got depressed. He stopped eating, and then he just he got COVID and passed away. I mean, I feel like he did die of depression, and yeah, that was just a weird experience to go, oh, yeah, I don't know what that means at all, but that life is just a mix of experience. Like I want to control how death or what will happen. Like my mom's death was actually my mom was very peaceful. She knew it was coming, near the end, and my dad was not at all peaceful. Not at all. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying with that, but I do that whole. I mean, that's what I love about marriage is the 50-50 risk is in all the ways that it's a risk. People say, like I had a friend who, she just found out her beloved had been having a secret life somewhere. And I don't like it when people like have hubris around their relationship where like, we kind of know each other. We've been together. We know what we're doing, and it's like everybody's a mystery, on some level that's beautiful. And to go all in, to really put yourself out there is a part of life. I mean, like any risk, like having a child or whatever it is. I've never risked having a child.
Me neither. Child free.
Child free.
That's the life plan.
I definitely did the research on that, and I was like, I mentored a teenager for 3 years, and I was like, wow, is this thankless? Whoa. Wow.
That brings to mind you talking about like you can never actually fully know your partner. Like it brings to mind the Michael Flatley page. Excuse me, I forget which dog this is. Which dog was Bert? The Bert Michael Flatley page, and how he had this elaborate inner life where he really felt that he looked just like Michael Flatley. Brad and I do talk about a lot about like, okay, you will always be an enigma. Like I am an enigma even to myself. And that idea of like just looking at a dog and knowing like we have actually no idea what is going on in there. We can make our best guess. The dog seems pleased. The dog seems calm.
They had shaved his chest for x-rays, and all of a sudden he looked very confident and took care of him. It just looked like a strong man, and sort of like a Michael Flatley type who always had his shirt off.
Yeah, I
it's
did.
kind of brave to always have your shirt off and be vulnerable. And I was like, well, and then Bert would always talk about, we'd come home and the Irish dance would be on sometimes. So that kind of.
Yeah, I love that it's channeled, that the dogs wrote the whole book and made the book. That also takes the pressure, off us,
Yeah, if you have any problems,
go to the dogs. Are you guys thinking about getting a dog?
Well, your book, no joke, your book definitely is pushing me in the direction of finally saying, like, we need to.
I want dogs so badly that if I could get pregnant and give birth to puppies, I would do it. Like, that's how badly I want it. I don't want to make a person, but if I can make 4 to 6 tiny dogs, I would do it in a second. I would do it.
And Lisa had a massive dental procedure a couple weeks ago, and she was terrified going into the dentist, absolutely terrified. And I had promised her that I am now ready to commit to having a dog, just to make her a little happier going into that dental chair.
And guess what? I because of the sedation, I did forget a lot. I didn't forget that. And I also didn't forget yelling at the dental hygienist with all of the things in my mouth and the thing on my nose for the laughing gas. I yelled at him, I want to die. And then in case he didn't hear me, I said it louder. I want to die. That's all I remember of the entire procedure.
What dental procedure did you have?
I had to get. So I used the pandemic as a convenient excuse to not go to the dentist because I hate the dentist. So I needed 2 crowns and a filling.
I just got 2 crowns yesterday and 2 fillings yesterday.
So did you go sedation, or were you awake for the whole thing?
Novocaine.
And he had 2 root canals the week before.
Did you cry?
I almost punched the guy. He shot me 10 times. He says I had the longest roots he's ever seen. Oh. So he shot me like 10 times with Novocaine. And even then I could still feel him and I was like screaming. He kept saying, you're a good patient. You're a good patient.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I use the laughing gas even when I'm just getting a cleaning, because I feel like, if I'm getting my teeth cleaned, I deserve a treat. I don't do drugs anywhere else, but I do like the laughing gas a whole lot. They play Taylor Swift, and I enjoy the laughing gas.
Oh, good for you.
Great.
Yeah.
Laughing gas wasn't offered.
You can just ask for it. I go to a gentle dentist.
Nice.
So I recommend.
Okay.
Even if you're not nervous, if you just want a good time, it's not that much money.
Yeah.
Way more fun.
So we may be getting a dog soon.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, I know I did a dog, like a quiz online to see what dog would be best, because I always thought I wanted like a giant dog, like a Rottweiler. And then I did a quiz online about different, and I was like, it turns out my energy level and personality, that pug came up, because pug, you never have to guess whether they like you or not. They are all in. They love you. They just love you. They just want to be next to you. And also, they're low energy.
My catastrophizing brain is always like, I have to, if the dog is in danger, I have to be able to lift it. That's my logic, is that I can lift the dog in a state of emergency.
Yeah, especially if another dog's attacking it, you got to get in there.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, are you into training dogs? Because if it's a big dog, you have to train them, and you should train a little dog too. But
We're not very good at
I'm
it.
not. I train Muffin to sit. That is
But they
all.
don't pee or poop in the house, which is amazing.
That
That
is
is amazing.
We have a dog park, unofficial dog park in a park near us, and we had a dog party. So 17 dogs were in our house with their, beloveds, and it was hilarious. There was vomit. There was dogs peed on stuff.
Dogs drinking out of the toilet. I mean, it was a great party.
It was
like a frat party for dogs, and then just a bunch of giants standing around watching.
And the dogs never stopped moving. They just kept marching around the house.
We woke up the next morning and there were all these paw prints everywhere. And
there's one dog, it was, I don't know what kind of Newfoundland or something,
like
but the size of a small pony.
Oh, yeah.
It was just barreling through the house.
Amazing.
Yeah, it turned over 2 tables
Yeah.
and was like so funny.
Yeah.
Is there anything about Hogbook and Lazer Eyes that we haven't covered that you would like us to cover before we wrapped up the conversation?
Just buy it from an independent bookseller, Fantagraphics, or from your local library. Request it from your local library, because that is the best when you can get. We use Libby for our
or Hoopla.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Scott and Maria, thank you so much for hanging out and talking Hogbook and Lazer Eyes today. We super appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's very
so
fun.
much.
Very
and I'll
fun.
send you guys Jackie Cation's info.
Yes, please.
It'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
fun to
Thank
talk
you.
to you guys.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye. And there you have it. Wasn't that conversation an absolute delight, Lisa?
It is so special, and I am going to cherish it always.
I really liked revisiting that moment in time that happened over 15 years ago at this point. Actually, it probably happened like right now, 15 years ago, when the two of us went to that Catholic weekend retreat that prepared us for a life of marriage.
It's wild to me that 2 people would do that kind of thing voluntarily. Though if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Maria and Scott.
Yeah, we were told by some parents that we
had to do it. You can't get married in the Catholic Church without doing this 2-day barrage of I guess counseling information.
It was a wild experience for me because, I grew up non-religious. I grew up basically secular. My mom was from the Church of England, and my dad, he went to church under some religion. I can't even tell you what religion that was when he grew up. But neither of them instilled that in me. So this idea of like us all gathering for 3 days to discuss marriage through the lens of Catholicism I found extremely fascinating.
Yeah, it wasn't 3 days. It only felt like 3 days. It was 2 days.
2 days, okay.
And the weird thing about it is because you're not supposed to sleep together before you get married,
right.
They pair up the
Yeah.
couples like with roommates. So you had some male roommate. Do you remember your roommate?
I don't remember his name, but I do remember him.
And I had some lady.
Do you remember her name?
No.
Okay. Because of reasons I think we're going to get into right now?
Yeah, I'm going to tell this story.
Okay. Maybe we've even told this on the podcast before. I'm not sure.
Sorry if we did.
Yeah.
But
it's so good, though.
At midnight, the night of our engagement encounter, somewhere was screening...
The E Street Landmark Theater in Washington, D.C.
was screening The Wrath of Khan.
Hell yeah, they were.
And there was no way that the Gullicksons were going to miss that.
Nope.
So I told my roommate, hey, my husband and I are going to go to the movies, with the underscore of like, don't tell on us. Because like, I am an upholder. If somebody tells me you're supposed to sleep with your roommate, I'm like, yes, whatever you say. So
I didn't say anything to my roommate. I just left.
And so the moment came, and Brad and I snuck out of the Hyatt.
Yeah, the
Or
Hyatt.
was it a Marriott?
I
can't remember.
A hotel of some kind.
We snuck out and we went to go to the movies.
Saw Wrath of Khan, which is
Amazing.
an amazing, all-timer, great masterpiece of a movie.
And I insisted that we go back and finish the night at the hotel because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
So I sneak back into my room and I'm being real quiet because I don't want to wake my roommate. And it's very dark in there. So I just kind of throw myself underneath the covers and my eyes adjust slowly to the darkness in the room. And I start noticing like the shadow on the other bed looks extremely large. And so I'm like looking at it and I realize, oh, there are now two people in that bed that are sleeping together. And it is my roommate and her fiance. And
presumably.
Yeah,
you don't know.
I don't know. I didn't ask any questions. So
You called
I go
me.
like, I don't know. I called you to let you know, okay, I'm coming out. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that you were coming back. And I was like, no, I totally understand. And,
you don't tell on me, I won't tell on you.
And yeah, and so we left.
And we then went back to the apartment.
Yeah.
And
we slept there.
We slept together in sin.
And then I was like, and I love the idea of like, that the Catholics were right. Like you pull the pin out, one person from engagement encounter leaves, and all of a sudden everybody is sleeping together. But then the next morning,
we had to sneak back in,
and I felt awful.
Yeah, and because we did as we were going through the lobby, we ran into one of the counselors.
Yeah. And in my head, I'm going like, "What's my lie gonna be?" Like we went out for breakfast, like, and the grilling that we got was, "Hey, good morning."
Yeah.
And it turned out to be totally fine.
Yeah. You can't pass up Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, no matter what.
That's right. And God won't even punish you for it.
No, they won't. It's a great memory. I love the memory of getting that phone call from you saying like, there's somebody else in this room.
We gotta get out of here.
And so we snuck out and we snuck back into that engagement encounter. And 15 years later, we're still married.
Worked out great. It must have been that weekend.
Yeah, the
It
27th
saved us.
will be our 15th wedding anniversary.
Isn't that fun?
And how are the Gullicksons going to celebrate? Well, we've already told you.
Yeah, we told you in the beginning. And now we're going to do all of our plugs again.
Right. On the next Comic Book Couples Counseling episode, we have Jordan Morris talking about youth group.
Yes, which also brought up wonderful memories for me.
That's another very personal conversation. Get excited about that one. Matt Kint and his mom, Margie Kraft Kint, will be on the podcast talking about Guilt Frame. And we have some surprises, as we alluded to already. Patton Oswalt, I'm just going to say it. Patton Oswalt, Jordan Bloom, and Kyle Starks are coming back on the podcast to have an epic chat about Barfly. That conversation hasn't been recorded yet, but it will. It's nice to have Patton back on the pod, having just spoken to Maria Bamford, half of the comedians of comedy. That just means that Brian Posehn and Zach Galifianakis need to come on the show next.
Brian Posehn has written comics.
He's got a new one. It just came out this past Wednesday.
Where is he? He should have phoned us.
We'll make that happen. And then once that happens, then Zach Galifianakis has no excuses.
That's right.
So there you have it. Please, in the show notes of this episode, go to the links to all the various other podcasts that we're being guests on. We did not mention this on the intro, but there's another show, the Wizards podcast, that I guested on, talking about the 1999 X-Men Wizards Wizard special. All about, like, will Wolverine get his adamantium claws back? Spoilers, he does. So, yes, please visit the links in those show notes. And, I think, okay. All right, I'll stop with the plugs, Lisa.
Let's wrap it up.
Although, did we mention in the intro that on June 23rd at 4 o'clock at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia, we're going to be screening Green Lantern, the Ryan Reynolds classic, in anticipation for Deadpool and Wolverine?
I don't think we did.
And if we did, there you go. You got it again.
You got it again. Come
Link
see
in the
us
show
at the
notes.
movies. If you're a patron, let us know, and we'll get your tickets if you're coming. Let us know if you're coming.
Free tickets for patrons.
Yeah. Okay, Brad. It's been a fun time. I have eaten half my weight of chocolate cupcakes out of the trash.
Oh, no.
So where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
You can find me on most social medias at Mouthdork. If you have words of affirmation for our logo, you can send them to Aaron Prescott at A Cool Hand Fluke. And if you have some words of affirmation for our radical banner art and show poster, send them to Karen Chapp at Karen_X-Men fan. Lisa, where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
I'm always accepting words of affirmation at Sidewalk Siren on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to spend more quality time with us, you can subscribe to us on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Apple Podcasts, or whatever app you choose. We're everywhere. If you'd like to get exclusive, you can join our Patreon, where you'll get more content, including weekly bonus episodes.
If you'd like to reach out and touch us electronically, you can email the podcast, cbccpodcast@gmail.com. You can visit our website, comicbookcouplescounseling.com, or follow us on all the socials at CBCC Podcast.
You can give us the gift of 5 stars on Audible or Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to do an active service, why not write a review of the show while you're there?
Yes, please.
We're fluent and receptive in all 5 love languages. It really warms our hearts and helps the pod.
So until next time, friends, keep your love tank full.
And your psychic rapport open.
Doopy doopy. Bum bum ba da bum bum ba da ba.